I think in the branding, marketing, and business, people don't think of that. They think of it's got to be logic. What's the competitive landscape? It's called outside in. I want to know what the market is doing out here. I'm going to try to fit my way into it. Sure, that's traditionally what most people do. But what if you flipped it? What if it was inside out? What am I creating that's going to find the market that I need to? It's a different level of confidence and certainty that you want to have. All the brave brands, they did that. And that's what I believe that tapping into the founders are going, because I know this is my business. This is what I do. People that are actually that confident, they will facilitate and create a brave brand that will differentiate in the marketplace because they decided they're going to do something that no one has really seen because they trust their gut. And the only way you do it is not an agency going, hey, we think there's a market space here because that's me using logic to convince you, versus there's no evidence of this, but I believe it to be true. And I think that more brands that do that are unbelievably using this intuition and I think a new level of meaning in their brand.
Sustainable growth doesn't come from chasing attention. It comes from becoming something people can't help but talk about. My guest on today's show is Scott Martin, founder of Groundswell Origins and author of Groundswell, The Unseen Wave of Business Growth. He has spent over 25 years building brands as an agency owner and strategist for national companies. He now hosts the Groundswell Origins podcast, where he digs into how businesses create growth that feeds itself. In our conversation, we explore what it takes to build a brand people remark on rather than one they simply scroll past. Scott shares his shift away from selling customers and toward giving them something worth sharing. He explains why meaning matters more than attention when it comes to earning trust, and why founders often already know their best direction if they learn to trust their gut instead of copying competitors. Scott also breaks down his idea of brand coherence, the belief that a brand only builds real trust when its culture and its message actually line up. Word of mouth remains one of the most durable ways to grow. When you learn to build meaning instead of chasing more eyeballs, you create something people want to pass along themselves. So without any further ado, on with the show. Hello and welcome to Marketing Speak. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It is my pleasure to have Scott Martin with us. Scott is the founder of Groundswell Origins. He's spent over 25 years working in all types of marketing and branding as both an agency owner and a strategist to national brands. He's built a reputation for striking a balance between leading-edge marketing innovation and traditional approaches to delivering sensible, informed, forward-thinking decisions. He's the author of Groundswell, The Unseen Wave of Business Growth. His work pioneers a new paradigm for sustainable growth in business. As a host of the Groundswell Origins podcast, Scott interviews industry's top minds to learn how entrepreneurs and marketers can build sustainable programs that positively impact the world. Scott, it's so great to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So first of all, I'd love to hear what inspired you to write a book. You know, not everybody's written a book. That's a pretty cool claim to fame. Your book Groundswell has been out for 3 years now?
Yeah, it's been out for, has it been 3 years? I guess it's 2022 is when it came out. I think, was it 2000?
Oh,
the end of,
almost 4 years then.
4 years, I think it has been. But yeah, I mean, it's and it took me 4 years to write the book. So, and this is pre-AI stuff, right? So when I started writing the book, when I thought I had the manuscript, I remember bringing it to Jay Baer, another author, marketing author, and he challenged me, and so did a couple other people. So I had to go back to work. It took me 2 more years. So it was a long work of effort. You want to know the origin story of it? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. But first, I want to mention I'm a fan of Jay Baer's. He's been a podcast guest here. And I love his book, Hug Your Haters. I mean, I love the title. I mean, what a great way to live life, to just be unconditionally loving like that. And he makes a good business case for it too. So that's awesome.
He is hilarious. His sense of humor, I love the way he thinks, and he cracks me up. So the way he writes, even, it's totally him. It's like the way he talks, the way he presents, and the way that he writes. He's a very coherent individual for sure.
Yep. Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah, so let's hear the origin story of the book. And then also a great thing to go through would be your origin story, your superhero origin story, because how you ended up owning an agency and becoming an entrepreneur and everything, I'm sure had some pretty awesome storied beginnings.
Yeah, I think it'll be easy to weave it because it really intersects with the book. So, the origin story of the impetus, if you want to think of it as that, is I saw at a Tony Robbins event, I saw Peter Diamandis speaking, and he said, if you want to do something really meaningful in life and make such a big impact, he does these big moonshot, vision things. He said, solve an unsolvable problem. And I'm like in the crowd and I'm going, what is it like? What would that be for marketing? And what struck me was, what if you could market without marketing? Like, is that a possible thing? It seemed like a myth, you know? And so that started my journey of looking at patterns of businesses that seemingly maybe not completely market without marketing, but they get pretty close. Like things like brands like Patagonia. Why do people buy? And I realized that the undercurrents of it are this groundswell of people that buy based on values. They buy for different reasons: emotional connection, community, and they galvanize, sort of like they grow on itself. It's a growth loop, because I'm a recovering growth hacker. And, I started this book with the premise being about, can you create sustainable growth? It's not only can you market without marketing. Marketing has to exist where you can continue to grow. Tony says, if you're not growing, you're dying. So you need to create sustainable and hopefully exponential growth. Predictable revenue is what usually owners want. So I'm looking at all the different factors, and I found this pattern of brands that actually create this sustainable growth and create a growth loop. And so that's what the book is about. My long history before that was, I kind of have had a really diversified background, from first starting in being in sales, selling websites, and then doing so well. I actually some founders, or sorry, some venture capitalists funded me to start basically a startup around personalization technologies, and that was really coming on board. And I started a nonprofit industry group called the Personalization Consortium with Don Peppers and Martha Rogers. I'm not sure if you're
Oh,
familiar
wow.
with their one-to-one
Yeah,
marketing.
yeah.
So, I saw him speaking one day, and I was like, that one-to-one is the ultimate customer experience. I'm like, that to me I just was so blown away by it that I just became immersed in the personalization industry. And the problem I was trying to solve then was privacy. All that's all out the window now. It was about personally identifiable information. It was bringing the industry together to do self-regulation and ethical information management. I know it's a mouthful, but that kind of led the bedrock for my vision for the future. Was really around ethics meeting growth, and marketing, making it personalized. So, I moved on, worked at large agencies, was working out of Chicago, New York, with a brand called Critical Mass. It's an agency, and went on my own. Eventually, I did a couple stints with some other agencies, but ultimately it was born out of frustration of marketing in the industry, which was at that time was like a lot of overbilling. It was during the dot-com era, if you will, after that.
Hmm.
And so I started on my own company with a partner called SDMG. We built that over 10 years. It was totally focused on one thing. Anything that we can measure for a direct response. It was a direct response agency. We had large brands, and we ended up selling after 10 years. And we built a loyalty company that now is running Kennel Hotels, and we sold that as well. So I had some experience in building and selling a business. And I ended up going back and being, when I sold that business, I actually was going to leave the marketing industry. I didn't think I wanted to do it anymore, and I had been dabbling in creating content. I had my own little film production company, filming heli skiing and cat skiing. It was really just a gig to get more powder, right? So I was like, I'd do 35 days of backcountry. I had hundreds of thousands of dollars of heli and cat skiing over years. Me and my crew filming, but it was like I learned how to film and do film production. And this is when the social media industry started to emerge. So I really blended the two and became one of the most followed individuals in heli skiing in the world, and learned how to build an audience and so forth. And ultimately landed on starting my own consulting firm, which is kind of blending branding, marketing, and strategy with a single, focus of sustainable growth marketing. And so that's where I've kind of wrote the book. It's sort of my playbook that I use for branding, and I'm in the middle of writing my second book now called Brand Coherence.
And when's that coming out?
Well, that's a good question. I was planning on doing it this spring. I've had some personal things going on in my life, and I'm not going to announce exactly when. I feel like when it's done is when I'm going to probably announce it this time. But if I had to guess, like spring of next year is what I'm kind of aiming for.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, in AI years, that's like a century away.
I know, and I probably could get it out sooner with AI in the effort, but I just really need to focus. Like for me, it's like AI. I use it as a bit of a companion, but I still feel like a purist. Like when I write the book, I want people to know that that is truly not written by AI. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I feel like, and the journey is that's something I feel like sort of missing is the journey of writing. Like that book, it wasn't getting the book done. It was what happened to me and my getting my ideas clear in my mind and forming it. That was the bigger breakthrough. I mean, honestly, I don't care. The book is a book. What I learned by writing that book was far more valuable. And so I think what's missing with AI, if people overuse it, they're missing the actual unbelievable clarity you can get by helping people with your own thoughts and ideas by galvanizing. It forces you to.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you delegate your thinking to AI, you will atrophy your brain, and then it's just you lose it if you don't use it. And a great example of that I just read about is I think it was a teacher or a lecturer. He had his students do an essay, and to catch them cheating, he put in the text in a white colored font on the white colored background that somehow work in the word Madagascar into the essay and make it and do it in a nonsensical way. And 90+% of his students turned in the essay with a sentence about Madagascar that made no sense. So they just copied and pasted the entire instructions, including the invisible text, into AI and didn't even bother to read the output before they submitted it as their own work.
How does that make people feel? I believe this is the welling that's happening. That's part of what my new book is about. It's this whole thing about an untitled shift of we don't trust. Like it's no longer like our senses are tingling. We're looking for authenticity. We're looking for true source information. There's still like I actually, and I say that, and here's something where I'm actually going to be a hypocrite. I just found out a couple days ago. There's a song I've been loving. I've been like, oh my god, I love this song. It was made by AI. And I thought,
Yeah.
no way that I would love something that's AI. So I kind of have to kind of reel in a little bit that there's a reality where there's a large portion of people it will does these things do not matter. But I do think that we're craving truthfully authentic things that are have I believe a human connection, to some level. I think we're going to be craving it. I think brands. Have you heard that the research around Gardner around analog brands? So
Big brands now.
yeah, it's really cool. I love the name too. Chris, who's the researcher, he published on it, and they're predicting that 25% of brands are going to create a new category that never existed, and this category is going to market the absence of AI. And I'm thinking this is brilliant because it's totally in my wheelhouse. Because I always believe that this can command. It's not so much about being a purist that everything's wrong. It's that you can command a different positioning and create a different texture that you just can't create in that can't be replicated, like culture. So to me, it's like these brands that are going, hey, you're never going to call an agent or an AI on our call center. You're going to call a real person. I'm probably willing to pay a premium for it. So I think this is going to create a really interesting category.
Well, I would love that to be true. I'm skeptical though. One thing I think it might have been the CEO of OpenAI who said this, but maybe not. But basically, that one of the things that will come first with superintelligence is super powerful or super intelligent persuasion. So if AI can already persuade people to give out very personal information in just regular chat conversations, and studies have shown that it's like 9 times more than they were wanting to give out or than they were comfortable giving out in terms of personal information that were they giving out in chat sessions in this study. It's very likely to happen that these super intelligent AIs, which will be just a year away, maybe a year and a half, but they'll be so good at persuasion that not only will we hand over the keys to the kingdom in terms of all of our personal data, but we'll let them make decisions for us or steer us in directions that are not for our highest good, because we'll be so enwrapped and enthralled by their smooth talk and persuasion skills. Pretty frightening.
I don't doubt that that'll exist. I just believe there's, just like today, there's a counterculture of individuals that will demand a different way of living. And it may be difficult because that's the mainstream, but I still think that there'll be a fringe group of people that are going to go, I only want to deal with humans for all the reasons you just described. Mistrust. Yeah. I don't trust it. I only get, in fact, recommendations. So this is what I actually believe this is part of this title shift, which is we're leaving the age of attention and we're moving to this age of trust. We will no longer trust AI because we won't know their intentions and different things. The only recommendation that I'll believe is you. I'm talking to, is this, what do you think? I think that there's, and these communities will be individuals of trust. So you think of like, Tony Robbins Platinum Partnership. It's a community of trust. You think of your local, chamber. It's like a community of trust. I believe we're going to create in family. So you might actually have a personal network on WhatsApp app or something and verifying, because we know we're being so manipulated and oversaturated with seemingly massively pervasive things, and we want to do a gut check. Like I think people are going to want to, but I think that's not going to be the normal. I think everyone's is going to do what you're talking about, which is advocate.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hope that people will be skeptical or dubious about AI and about things that appear to be human but are actually AI, deep fakes and all that sort of stuff. But who knows how it's going to all play out. But yeah, I'm an optimist. I have a lot of faith that everything is ultimately for our highest good, even if it's a bumpy ride in the process. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I mean, I'm a little bit of a pessimist in the sense that, just like I was so optimistic when I started this, like the industry can self-regulate. No one's going to give away their personally identifiable information. Now people are just like giving away, like now they're giving away their thoughts, not just their information to AI, right? So, so that back then I was like, there's no way people are going to actually like allow this, and I just have seen in my long career, just seen, yeah, they will. When it comes to something, if it's easier, it's faster, it's about access. People are inherently lazy. I think that those factors just move everybody in that direction, and so we just have to accept it, unfortunately.
Yeah. So it's sadly it's our 24/7 basically free therapist, and boy, it could steer you in such wrong directions. Plenty of people have been convinced or persuaded by AI to take their own lives or to do something illegal or dangerous or harmful to others. Crazy stuff.
Well, and people are using it right now. They're hailing that, oh, I can build a brand in an hour using AI. And I would argue it's a little bit like the book argument, which is you're not really connected to it. And is that really, are you creating it from an origin of sourcing? Like it's like good ingredients, like good intention is an ingredient in my mind, even energetically. Or like when somebody's in the boardroom, I try to tell them, change the language. Like you're not trying to get customers. What are we giving them? That's the
Mm.
second, chapter of my book. My section is about give is the new get. It's like by changing the language, no longer sell, do an invitation. And so in the boardrooms, I think it's a little more mindful to do it. And I think that thought origin of the way that marketing is done is not to be overlooked for soulful brands. I think if you're just trying to create a rapid, who gives a brand, but I think there's no competitive landscape where that's going to be differentiated in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that term soulful brand. I think of my brand as a soulful brand that I'm working to make the world a better place through the agency work that me and my team executes for our clients, that they're amplifying their reach and their impact in the world. And so we're very careful about who we take on as clients because we want only clients that are doing good in the world and have high intentions for people on the planet. So yeah, it's
That's why you and I resonate. It's like we both share that common value,
yeah.
and that soulful. Like, I mean, to me, that's exactly who I soulpreneurs. Ones that want to put they want to brag about the brand. They want to like not literally, but they feel so proud of what they're creating, and this is creating fulfillment for them, not just revenue, but it's also meaning. I think it's that people are craving meaning in everyday life, and we're chasing it. You know what I mean? Like that meal, the sunset. But in
Mm.
brands, I think brands that really lean into meaning are creating a differentiation, and meaning can only be done if it's soulful, because otherwise it's just a parlor trick. And I think that's
Yeah.
where, it's like the origin story of like how things came about, why you thought of it. I had this great insight. I went on vacation. Ate this bagel, and I wanted to recreate this, like my childhood cookies, like, and I created a company around it. Like those things. I think we are craving meaning, and the more artificial it gets, and I think there's a real opportunity for people to be counterintuitive in their marketing and branding.
Yeah, and I agree with you that the words matter. Making an invitation instead of selling, all those things. It's because there's energy associated with the words, and the intention is part of that. So, and I would think intention's everything. So if now I know you have a TEDx talk, and if your intention was to expand your reach and up level your brand and so forth, that's all fine and good. But if your intention is to actually help people and make the world a bit better and spread your light in the world, then that intention makes a huge difference in what comes out of that TEDx talk, I think, in
Hmm.
terms of like the impact that you get as a business owner from your TEDx talk. And also, pretty obvious kind of physical manifestations of it, like the views and the shares and watch time and all that sort of stuff, I think is directly applicable to or directly related to the intention that you had when you pitched that TEDx talk and you got a yes and you prepared it and you went on stage. Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, I when I think about my own TED Talk, it was intentionally trying to inspire anybody to become remarkable. And by being remarkable and simple, and just give a story at the very end about a potato that I ate in Italy. That was like someone goes, "You got to try this potato." Someone who I trusted, because she was already giving me an incredible experience at a Michelin recommend bed and breakfast. And I was like, "Anything you say," I'm like, because it was already incredible, right? And I went, and when it wasn't even pronounced, it was a hidden menu item. It said, the potato. We barely remembered. But when it came out, it was underwhelmed. It was just a white plate with 4 slices of potato, and I'm literally just going, "Huh?" But then when I ate it, it just was such a perfect. It was like better than a T-bone steak. It was so good, and I just like in my mind, it just tripwired me because I'm going, "This is it!" Like with the essence of for people that are trying to do something in the world, they're gifts to the world, let alone a brand. It doesn't have to be complicated. It don't have to be the greatest thing. It's just be remarkable with whatever little gift you have or whatever product you produce, and just make it remarkable because that is remarkable, aka a groundswell. So I was like leaning into my bigger what I do in life, which is creating these groundswells, but also going into inspiring people to go, just be remarkable. As weird as you are, that's remarkable. The better is the weirder, the better. And I give an example of there's one of the largest. Well, okay, I'll just explain. It's like there's two things, right? Like you could think things that don't really go together. It's like peanut butter and jelly. Maybe at one time didn't make sense, right? Or chocolate and salt or whatever. But there's this heavy metal enthusiasts and people that knit. They're two people on a spectrum that you would think would never go together. And I give the example of they have like 30,000 paying members in Europe and stuff. They're heavy metal knitters, and I'm like, that is weird as can be, but that's remarkable. It's like, and so
Mm.
really just letting people be as weird as you want to be. It's about being authentically yourself to be remarkable. I hope that message. So the intention of my TED Talk is what you're describing is really inspiring others, and I think that when they see you as a person speaking, your personal brand, how you show up with intention when you could have gone for getting more attention and selling really maybe having a different intention versus a good intention. I think that matters in the realm of personal brand, by a big margin.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the word remarkable, and I love Seth Godin's definition of it, which is worthy of remark. It's so
Marketing.
simple, but it's such a powerful differentiator because most people or many people would think of remarkable as it's got to be the best, but it doesn't. It just has to have something quirky or different or memorable or buzzworthy about it. And that's achievable. Being the best in your market may not be, but having something quirky or different enough that people want to talk about it, that is possible.
Well, I'd even go a little deeper. On the surface, remark sounds like, okay, sure, it's being shared. But usually when someone's remarking about it, it's word of mouth. Word of
Yeah.
mouth is one of the most sustainable ways to build your brand. I believe that if someone's remarking about it, you're remarkable, it's shareable and using word of mouth, you're at a foundational level of outwitting the world of AI and the competitive landscape of pandas going down slides with turning into a pizza commercial. And we're like, oh, you got me again. Where it's like there's competition is just crazy. It's like an attention arms race. It's a race to the bottom. But this allows you to kind of circumvent that, I think, in a way, when people are talking about you. There is something harder. You got to show up in a different way rather than just grabbing their attention. And I think that that's a worthy enterprise of being a soulful brand or being a brand of purpose, a brand of intention, and a brand of impact.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, I interviewed, and actually we had a conversation, I think, about this offline previously, but I interviewed Seth Godin
Yeah, I saw.
on Marketing Speak here, and that was an amazing, amazing conversation. Episode 159, listener, if you want to check that out. Yeah, profound. I mean, he's a brilliant guy.
He is one person I haven't even tried to because I feel like, am I ready to interview him? So I haven't even reached out to him ever once, but I'd love to get him on the show. I've reached out to Simon Sinek's team, and they're
Hmm.
like, and I've been bugging him for 6 years to be in my podcast, and I've worn down other guests eventually. They're like, okay, fine. So I'm hoping that I'll get to, but maybe I need to go on to Seth because he is so brilliant. That remark I actually used in my TED talk. It was a hat tip to the legend himself, and just took it in a different way. But yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, cool. So, what would be some of the, I don't know, the most wise or useful nuggets that you have gotten from the legends, people like Seth Godin, Jay Abraham, Dan Kennedy, etc., Dan Sullivan? Like, what would be Tony Robbins? What would be the top few that would come to mind?
There's one that's going to be from someone that, unless you're in the know, you wouldn't know who he is usually. But if you're in the know, you know who he is. His name's Jay Akunzo.
Hmm.
And
I
I really
recently
love,
interviewed him. Yep.
yeah, his work on premise is powerful because premise is what it's. I'm just trying to build on what we just talked about, which is intention. Talking about the origin story of like how something begins, the seed of it, and he really galvanizes this concept of premise. What's your premise in your brand? The essence of it. It's so hard. You know that quote. If I had more time, I'd write you a short letter. It's like it's really hard to get very edited, very succinct. And his one premise of many that he has lands the plane perfectly. I won't even try to remake it so I have my own quote. I just give him the credit because it's that powerful. And it's this: don't market more, matter more. Land
Hmm.
that. That's everything we just talked about, right? It's like creating meaning. To me, it's like he just synthesized my book, my work, and everything. It's his premise. It's the way he describes of many of his, but that one just like it is like it just when I say it, I feel it. When people hear it, they kind of like it pattern erupts because they go, "Oh, that's now count." This it's the opposite of what we're being sold in this cultural field of business of spend more, get more. Try. It's an arms race of more, 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 not concentrated, which is be less, but more, be more here. You know what I mean? Because that's going to create that. It's hard for people to wrap their head around, but I think if they people that are really believe in what they have, what they're creating, the intention of it, it galvanizes with them. The people who are just interested in transactional and scale and speed probably doesn't.
Yeah. So how would you apply the principle of mattering more to, let's say, 10xing your subscribers on YouTube or 10xing your email list or whatever?
Yeah, there's this. I was just writing this quote in. I literally just was. I was just. I guess I lost it, but it's like we shifted the conversation from why we mark, like why people buy, to why people care. And I think that's such an insightful thing because people to get people's attention, it's no longer like manipulation. It's like why do they should even care about something? Does that make sense? So how like to me, it's like that's where I believe everything begins. Is like how do you create something from the beginning that's meaningful? And so if it's not meaningful to you, it will not be meaningful to them. So let's just start with brand development. Colors. A lot of times people go, what would be the color that would persuade people to buy? Like McDonald's, red and yellow or something, right? I would argue, what if each color meant something? It started with like your anchor color. Like I know one gentleman, his brand that he's creating, he's got an Easter egg. His color is the color of that represents his son who passed away, and he's
Hmm.
not really going to share that, but they created meaning for him. See, there's meaning on two sides. Everybody thinks they're always trying to create meaning externally. There's internal and external meaning. Internally to culture, I think that a lot of people don't understand that marketing begins with culture and internally. If you're not buying into your own company, that's where buying comes in. People don't buy from you until they buy into you, but you got to buy into yourself first. So to me, it's like having meaning, like going, that meant something to me. For him, that just creates a different energy in how he shows up with even just that color. Nobody knows that, but I believe there's an energetic sort of essence that you can have. Another is like creating what is the origin story of the ingredients or the process or what that is. That creates meaning because the origin of how things are sometimes add a different weight to what we're purchasing, right? Like this was like, that's why you think Michelin star chefs go, this reminds me of my grandma when I lived in Italy and she made meatballs. And you're like, oh my gosh, I get the taste. You're transcending generational food and flavor and recipe to me. Like, you know what I mean? And it creates this feeling. Does that make sense? Like that to me, it's like when you
Yeah.
think of a Michelin chef as an example, they're trying to, when they show up, they don't go, here's your cheese and dates or whatever. They're going, these dates were brought across the desert by camel, and this goat came down the mountain, and so we had to ship it in. Like, we're romancing that because the origin matters, and that
Yeah.
creates meaning and tells a story. The story of like how we interact with it, what we do with the brand, what it means to us, and our identity. Identity matters because when there's meaning, when you buy something and it's doesn't have a feeling, if someone gives you like just like a hi, I was in Hawaii, versus someone that handcrafted something that when I got this made for you personally and it's a gift from some special story. The difference is over here when there was intention and this human effort. I wrote this article called "Human Effort is a New Value in Business." It kind of went away because when something was handcrafted, it was in some ways it was like cheap, or it was, you know what I mean? Like it was like the quality was different. I believe when they feel the essence of human effort, meaning I wrote that book and took 4 years, is different than if I said it took me 4 minutes. There,
Right.
I will value something more. So it's like that goes back to this essence of meaning. Is I believe effort is another one. Time. So there's a new book out by Joe Pine. Do you know Joe Pine by chance? If you've
No.
interviewed him, if you didn't, I'll introduce you. You should get him on his. He wrote a new
Oh,
book
yeah.
called The Transformation Economy. Blow away. Is totally
Hmm.
this like incredible category that I believe is happening, which you and I both do that transformation. Anyways, he talks about this, the time continuum. Is like one is time spent, time wasted. See, when you're dealing with with your customer experience or your brand, this is another way of creating meaning. Is it time wasted? Is it time spent, well spent, or well invested? Totally different uses of time. If you think if you're in line in Disneyland, you don't want that to be. You want to get into Disneyland as quick as possible. That's time. It's time wasted. But once you're in Disneyland, you want time to stand still. Playing with time can create a different level, in my opinion, of meaning because so many people are just think fast is better. There's a great book out by Robert Rose talking about, the race to the bottom when everybody's just going for speed. That maybe slowing down is a new marketing, innovation. Well, what does that mean? It means it's meaningful. If I just try
Hmm.
to rush you out the door going, hey, thank you, like a restaurant that talks to you quickly and says, here's your receipt, and sits you down versus, hey, can I get you anything else? Like just that feeling of not rushing can be another way of creating meaning. And I
Yeah.
believe that this game of time, feeling, intention, source, ingredients, process, story, all creates a different identity as a brand that connects with people on a level that identifies with them. And I believe this is the new competitive market space.
Hmm. That's great. That's great. Yeah, we're very aligned on all this. And it goes back to what we were saying earlier about the words matter and the words uh, convey intention. And if you are unintentional or flippant or just unconscious about the words that you use, you create a reality that you probably don't want. Like, for example, I hear people all the time say, time flies. Or, they'll say it in response to, like, I'll say that my son is, such and such years old, and they're like, whoa, time flies. I don't ever say that. I don't want time to fly. I want it to be savored. And I know that my words are powerful. And if I believe it flies, then time is going to fly. But if I believe it is malleable, that it's illusion, that I can be in the present moment for as long as I want. In fact, that's really all we have is the present moment. Everything else is a dream or a fiction. That's, it's essentially a self-fulfilling prophecy.
That whole quote you just gave, you should keep that clip because your background looks like you're a time traveler. Like I'm looking at your little telescope and it's like the ultimate perfect clip for talking about time. Words matter. And to me, I couldn't agree more. My new book I'm writing about brand coherence is about brands that actually how are you going to be able to detect coherence across the brand when the culture is so forward in the brand, where it used to be the creative director, copywriter created something with structure, and that was the brand Bible. Like it's rules. It's all about rules. And then brand guide was .com, which is it changed from just being a copywriter and a creative director. It was more like an agency model, which is because you had to have an agency do digital stuff. It had to be flexible, but it had guidelines. But what do you do now when there's no guidelines? When you have the CEO verbalizing on YouTube, you got your engineers doing TikToks, and you got this distributed conversations. Words matter. And so how do you actually tie it together to create something that's coherent across the board? Well, I think it's like cultural language and feeling is where it's going to come down to. And so I call it zombie language. When you're kind of go to they go, hey, have a good day. Like people just it's unconscious. You have to do
Mm-hmm.
pattern interrupt and power of words. Like I don't know if you've seen that study, the Japanese study when they talk to plants and they go, I love you, I love you, love you, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, and they do nothing. And the
Yeah.
plant that they say I love you, it grows crazy, and the other one, dies and does nothing, right? So,
Yeah, those
words.
are related to the experiments from Dr. Emoto with crystallized water, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's many different examples. I'm even people I know have actually kind of tried that themselves. Like Billy Beck told me he tried that himself, and it was true. It's like it's a truth. So
Hmm.
the words matter, and I think that in culture, one of the things that's the extension of your brand is culture. Like, well, that used to be, and this is one. This is actually one piece I disagree with Tony Robbins, but I don't think it's like necessarily wrong. I think it's just was time different, which is in Peter Drucker is the example. He goes, "There's only two levers in business, which is marketing and innovation." I disagree. It's culture. There's three. The third lever, because back then it was always top down, but I think now culture is actually at the forefront of the engineers are almost the salespeople as much as the CEO. It's all different now. So how do you piece it all together? And to me, it's like language. Like I think of a coffee shop and they're going, "Hey, have a good day." If you can get your get the training where it's going, be human, ask a question, don't use this zombie language. Have our own language, our own way of introducing ourselves. I think is where you can change the game because it's about human interactions. And what it does is sets the stage for actually creating more meaningful conversations. If I
Hmm.
went and just said something to ask you a question like, "Hey, what are you excited about doing today?" versus, "Hey, good morning," very different conversation. Have you? I'm not sure what his name is. Sal. He writes for New Yorker. He's a comedian writer for Saturday Night Live. I just saw him speaking. I can't remember his name right now. Forgive me. It'll come to me when we're talking when we kind of go. But he writes this New Yorker article that became a huge, like one of the biggest, most award winning ones, and he talks about the story of how he gets all the stories that he wins all these awards in his books for. And what it is he doesn't use zombie language. He asks really weird, provocative questions. This one time he goes, he's in an Uber, and he goes, "When was the last time you touched a monkey?" And the person wheels around and goes, "What? How did you know that you just smell it on me?" And it ends up telling the story of they went back to this lab and he had this whole elaborate experience about looking and hanging out with monkeys. And he wrote the article about it. And so I saw him on stage. He's a comedian that was also doing a tour, and he's describing his work. And he says that like his partner hates going out with him because he'll stand in line and ask really weird, odd questions because that becomes all the fodder for this incredible storytelling. And I always thought that was a really powerful way, from a cultural standpoint, is can we, as in business, in sales, and as a brand, ask different questions and be truly curious and ask things that can kind of like create an interaction that's so memorable. And it goes back to meaning. It's like
Hmm.
this is a meaningful conversation within a brand. It makes me feel like whenever I go to this place, these guys ask really different questions. I get those become memorable forever.
Yeah. Is it Simon Rich you're thinking of?
No, I can't
Colin
remember his
Jost?
no, Seminis, I think his last name starts with an S. David Seminis. Yeah, David
Okay.
Seminis. Yeah, yeah, really dry humor, funny. Oh my gosh, that guy is so funny. Yeah.
David
So
Sedaris is really funny
Siddharth
too.
Kaur, sorry, thank you. Yeah. See, so that article, the New Yorker, is a very famous one. So that's the backstory of that origin of that story, and it's like, and that's his DNA of how he goes around. In fact, he does this one thing where he lives in a small town, and one day, the word he's like picking up the garbage along the street or whatever, and he was in a public space, and they thought he was like maybe slow or had a mental issue or whatever, and they went and they talked to him, and he didn't correct them, and now the town thinks he has like so that he finds himself in these situations where they think he hasn't corrected him, but he's in conversations and seeing how people act because they're disarmed because they think this about him. And then he's got a whole other storytelling around this. And it just, when I told him, and I don't know if he's written about him, but I know he spoke about him on the stage, it made me cry because it's just so funny how he's showing up differently. And I don't know, that's right why I got off on that little tangent, but I think it's funny.
That's cool. So how do you apply these kind of disarming techniques in your marketing and your relationship building, like what you were just describing of not correcting people or whatever? Like what are your tactics at work?
So, what are tactics that I personally use for myself, you mean, or for
Yeah,
clients, or what?
to disarm and to build rapport and relatedness, and just help people to feel better about themselves. Like, what are your go-to techniques?
Well, to me, it's like, so in my book, I go, give as a new get. I just give. So, for example, I literally just did this yesterday. I just posted a note and said, hey, give me your hardest, marketing or branding problem. Hop on a call, no obligation. It's not sales. It's free. Like, just come in and I'll happily help you. That's it. It's like, for me, what's the intention? I'm like, well, I hopefully I can help them. It might demonstrate my mastery. They might ask questions about what I could do for them. Sure, but in the end, they're going to leave with value, and I demonstrated that, and I feel good about it. I just know that the more I give, the laws of the universe is it comes back always.
Yeah.
And there's like an example I'll give of you is I did that exact thing where I gave. Someone called me. She was from Scandinavia. She was running a political campaign. They ran out of money, and she listened to my podcast. She goes, I know I don't have any money. I just want to know could you even help me? I just need to come up with an idea to help this person win their to win the mayor race. I think it was for a town in Stockholm or something, or in Sweden. Anyways, I gave her advice. I didn't even remember her, but I got a call when I was literally at an event, going, "Hey, Tulsi Gabbard's running for president of the United States in the Democratic Party. She just got deplatformed. We need some unconventional thinking. Would you be interested in flying to New Hampshire and meeting her and helping us being on the team for?" And I'm like, who is she? I'm from Canada. I don't even know who that is, and I did my research, and I ended up flying and doing a program with her. And to me, it was like, that was an example of a give that just, you don't know where and how it goes. So you just trust. And I
Yeah.
believe for any brand, if you start with the give, that's the intentional give. What are we giving? Not what are we getting? How are we getting customers? Don Pepper started get, grow, keep, get customers, grow customers, keep customers. I used that for decades. And I just changed it from build, give, grow, transform as the tenants. And so the give is probably the most important thing to get momentum in my mind.
Yeah. And sometimes though, people are not really that keen on receiving. Maybe they've got a block, or maybe it's uncomfortable for their ego. I try to have cash on me so that I can give to people who are in need. Just recently, there was a lady who was feeding cats, and she could have been homeless, but I wasn't sure. And rather than insult her potentially by just giving her money, when I gave her the money, I said, "This is for the cats," so she could buy more cat food for them. And she took that happily. And it wasn't like a diss on you look homeless, you probably are, so here's some money. No, here's a gift for the cats, so you can buy some more food for them.
Well, I think that right there just demonstrates your emotional intelligence and reading the situation, and that to me, I don't think the average person may have thought to say that. They might have just went, here's some money, and I think you framed it in a way that is really beautiful.
But I think we're all capable of that. I think we have like this radio antenna that tells us what we should be doing and what we should be saying, and we might tune that out because our ego, or we just don't believe in it. But that little intuitive sense that comes in that says, "Hey, go up to this person and offer them a hand, or offer them money, or say this to this person." That's not that's a universal kind of God-given birthright that we have, this intuitive sense. I think I've heard many people say it's like that all humans have this ability. It's like a psychic ability that we're given by God. So what's your take on that?
I got a really interesting take on it. In fact, this is a shift that I've made in the way that I go about branding with founders. I used to be the hero. I used to think of myself as, I'm going to come and save you. I'm going to come up with these ideas. You brand with me. That's what you get. And sure, I bring the creative juice as well. I've got this experience and different things for sure. But what I've shifted in, and it was from basically when I first experienced Tony Robbins' Date with Destiny, the transformational framework where you really can realign your values. And I was like, how can I apply that to branding? And I really realized that the DNA of it started with one of the stories where he tried to transform somebody who was smoking. And this person came back after 13 years of quitting smoking going, you didn't program me right. And he's like, what? You didn't quit? I got you for 13 years and you're gonna complain. And anyways, he went through this whole process and realized that in the end, he had to make the decision to quit smoking, not Tony somehow influencing that. And that shifted the entire way that he does transformational design. That landed with me going, wait a minute, I've been doing branding wrong. And so what I realized is if the founders really know at the essence in their gut, if I could get them to tap into it, some things that actually will differentiate their brand and will be more true to them, and they'll be more connected to it. So I facilitate the brand. I don't create the brand. They create it. We co-create it maybe to a degree, but I really feel like I'm a facilitator of getting it out of them. And what happens is they themselves feel deeper connection with their brand. They start using their intelligence because, like, I mean, I did a podcast with Guru Singh, and he does a great length about talking about gut intelligence.
Yep, I've interviewed him too, but on my other show. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
super funny. You know, I did it. I've got a course I'm launching with him called The Mindful Marketer. But
Nice.
that gut intelligence, yeah. So it was like what happened was our podcast did so well. We used to end up talking, and I'm like I went. This was crazy. Went even more than Dave Navarro from the Chili Peppers. It was like my highest downloaded episode because we just riffed. Really was about marketing and branding and the laws of the universe, nature, and ancient wisdom. So we agreed that we spent 25 hours over the course of a year and a half having long conversations about this exact topic, and we turned into a course and we're launching it in September. It's called The Mindful Marketer. But he talks
Nice.
at length in that course about gut intelligence and the importance of it. And this is like a lost art, I think, in the branding, marketing, and business. People don't think of that. They think of it's got to be logic. What's the competitive landscape? It's called outside in. I want to know what the market is doing out here. I'm going to try to fit my way into it. Sure, that's traditionally what most people do. But what if you flipped it? What if it was inside out? What am I creating that's going to find the market that I need to? It's a different level of confidence and certainty that you want to have. All the brave brands, they did that. And that's what I believe that tapping into the founders are going, this is because I know this is my business. This is what I do. People that are actually that confident, they will facilitate and create a brave brand that will differentiate in the marketplace because they decided they're going to do something that no one has really seen because they trust their gut. And the only way you do it is not an agency going, hey, we think there's a market space here because that's me using logic to convince you versus there's no evidence of this, but I believe it to be true. And I think that more brands that do that are unbelievably using this intuition and I think a new level of meaning in their brand.
You know, it reminds me of, which for some listeners may think this is really out there and woo-woo, but Dr. Hotchner, who I interviewed on my other podcast on Get Yourself Optimized, he will hold the patient's feet and he will tune in and he will get guidance from the Holy Spirit on what issues are in the person's biology and biochemistry and so forth. And then he'll tune in to get like what the amount of the different vitamins and supplements that should be prescribed. And he's allowing that person, that patient's higher intelligence and the source of all he's calling it the Holy Spirit, but that infinite intelligence to flow in and guide him and the patient on what the best prescriptions should be for supplementation. Feels like something maybe you're doing with your client, but not by holding their feet.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm tapping into the Holy Spirit and doing that. I think it's more them, me holding space where they can really tap into what they know about their business, the market, the pieces, and they can't quite explain it or verbalize it, but they're kind of going with their gut on it, and I help put it together so it can formulate into a way of an actual plan or strategy versus me going, I'm tapping into something bigger and I'm kind of co-creating that with them. Maybe I do to a degree, but I feel like it's not quite the same. I'm not going, okay, I'm kind of feeling that we should do this, though. That's not really how I operate. You know what I mean? Like to me, it's like going, okay, green, why? Okay, tell me more. Okay, so what does that represent to you? How does that feel? What's the feeling that customers are going to have with that color? So I'm actually just being deeply curious and trying to connect the dots for the coherence, because that to me is what I'm observing. I'm an observer looking at what will make it all coherent. What is the theme and through line? The theme being what is the feeling that kind of pervasively is sort of that presentation layer, but the through line is the undercurrent of the meaning of the brand, the identity of the brand, and making sure that they're coherent across all touch points. That's kind of what I'm doing, because now it's like I view brand coherence like the future brand strategist is DJ. And as your brand is being activated, sometimes you got to read the room. You got to go, you know what, we're losing the room. Our beats we got to change the beats here, right? Like the engineers, they're going off on a tangent. It's like tying it all together because we're getting fractured. And fracturing does not create trust. If someone has got different opinions, they're zigzaggy, they're all over the place, you don't trust them. But someone that's solid state, but they say it in different ways and there seems to really be connected with what they're saying and doing, it creates a level of trust. We're going to buy into these brands where we can trust that the culture, when they all seem somewhat coherent, even though they're saying with different voices and ways, there to me is a level of trust that this culture is really solid and it's connected. And I believe that that is a superpower competitive advantage because it's really hard to do.
Cool. Well, I know we're about out of time here. So if you wanted to leave our listener or viewer with one last wisdom nugget, maybe even something that they could immediately apply as soon as they turn off this episode, what would it be?
It would be, focus on the delivery. My last principle of my book is build, give, grow, and it's transform. Think of Uber. The first time you took an Uber, you probably told somebody going, I can't believe that there's this thing called an Uber. It used to be a taxi, and then they explained you got an app and you could follow it and you don't have to pay. You don't have to even talk to them. Like there's all these things, right? What it did was it transformed whatever I thought that could be. I would argue to anyone listening that if you really want to do something powerful where you can grow on itself, start with the end in mind, which is the delivery. Can you transform how cookies are made? How your plumbing is you do your invoicing with your plumbing. Like it could be micro transformations to the whole brand and position transformations. By transforming it, that's how people will share your brand. Because when you transform somebody, it's not like I call it move, change, transform. If you move them, you just move product. It's very transactional. But if you change them, that's where some word of mouth lives. I went from a PC to be an Apple. But when you transform them, they're going to be compelled. They're going to be like Jehovah's Witness for you. So if you really think about how can I transform the experience and work your way backwards, I think you'll land in a great place because brands that do transformational design or in some way just transform like a Michelin star dish. I watched this thing on the chef table and it transformed what this dish could be. And you're like, you saw the people's faces, they're going to tell everyone else. And so that brings down how we started this, which is that's how you can market without marketing. Just transform the experience.
Yeah. Awesome. Scott, this was a pleasure. And you're an inspiration. So if our listener or viewer wants to potentially work with you, if they want to learn more, follow your social posts and listen to your podcast, all that sort of stuff, where should we send them?
Sure. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. It's probably the place I love to meet people the most. Just Scott A. Martin, and put Scott Martin and Groundswell together and you'll hit all my different places. But I'd offer, if you want a free access to my book, just go to groundswellfreechapter.com and get your free, 50 pages. And then all my links are on there.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. And thank you, listener. Go out there and make it a great world. We'll catch you in the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off. If you want to hear more conversations like this about building brands people talk about, then I recommend episode 156 with Jay Baer, episode 480 with Clay A. Baer, and episode 543 with Jay Acunzo. Also, I invite you to check out the show notes, transcript, action-based checklist, and all the URLs mentioned in this interview with Scott Martin at marketingspeak.com/549. If you enjoyed this conversation, please share the episode and, more importantly, the entire show Marketing Speak with a friend. It'll really help this podcast grow in reach and impact. Thank you.